It's possible that your website is being added into the mix of an existing business. If so, then you probably already have your brand figured out. In that case, this is probably going to be an easy lecture for you. As if! Whether you already know your brand or you are currently developing it, your website needs to fit seamlessly with your brand. Let me clarify one point here. I'm using the word brand in more than one way. To this point in the lecture, I have been talking about brand in reference to your overall business, independent of whether you have a website. For the rest of the lecture, I will be talking primarily about how you brand your website. I've already touched on what's your style in another lecture. Your style certainly plays a part of and should mesh with your brand, but I'm talking about something else in this lecture. And you're probably going to be really glad to hear what I'm talking about. You finally get to start making decisions about actual elements on your website. Woohoo! Your branding impacts things like your choice of fonts, colors, graphics, and any other visual elements. You will employ all these visual elements to tie together all the other pieces you've worked so hard to define. Make sure the visual elements complement and enhance everything else you have done to define the website. And just to state the obvious, make sure that the elements match what you are doing with the rest of your collateral and your business brand. Here are examples of what I mean by collateral: marketing brochures, business cards, print and online ads, product packaging. If you have already built your business brand, then you certainly have already made some choices about fonts and colors. And while your color palette should contain all the information you need to define your website brand, you will still need to determine more font choices for the text that appears in various places on your website. For instance, you will have textual elements like site name, site slogan or tagline, section headers, calls to action. You will also need to specify how you will make use of graphical elements throughout the site. Even if you already have products and their corresponding graphics, you aren't just going to throw those graphics all over the site, nor will those graphics generally be suitable for other visual cues. Some examples of visual cues are icons you use for bulleted lists, icons you use for navigational elements. This lecture has given you some guidance on the pieces you need to consider to define your website branding. But don't assume it has covered everything. You may need to hire a graphic designer or other branding expert. And speaking of hiring people, let's move on to the next lecture, where I talk about setting your priorities and determining a budget.